the last session. Are you guys feeling a lot of stuff? Did you reach parts of the self that were like pretty intense, pretty incredible? Yeah. Did you did you have a chance to finish your 7 layers deep, or the reason why? What's that? Yeah, Darby, you gotta unmute yourself here. There you go. There you are. Go ahead.
I struggled with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the hardest part for you?
When I'm gonna look back at my notes because one of the things I had a hard time even that first question, you know, about becoming successful, I went back and forth between things that are stopping me, that I know are stopping me, and things that I think are successful, and then I would come up with different things to start with, and I'm like, okay.
So I think it's really important when we go to 7 layers deep. What we're trying to do is find the reason why we do the things that we do. The whole idea is to understand that there are really deep reasons why we go and we do the things that we do. And it's super important when you really sit back and think about it and really resonate with yourself. What is it what is the driving force for me? What is it that encourages me to move forward even though I feel like I want to fail? It's the things that ignite underneath you to reach your goals. And that's the thing, is like when we're trying to find growth within ourselves, we're trying to find those areas of weakness and build them up into strengths. And sometimes those areas of weakness are the dark sides of ourselves. So they're not really that weak at all. They're actually wicked strong, but it just comes out very difficult and hard to deal with. And so it's really important to see where you're hitting a wall and figure out, why am I hitting that wall? So it's a good exercise to do when we're going deep. Now, did you understand how you were to ask yourself that question as to why?
And I understand the process in 7 pieces.
Yeah.
Going, okay, why is that? Why is that? Why is that? But I felt like, one of the things I thought of is, what's important about becoming successful. And I went from saying, well, not being overwhelmed, because I think for me, one of the things is, I feel like I'm going to be overwhelmed, and I don't want to be overwhelmed. And then I kind of took it from the successful side and kind of said, well, what is it about becoming successful? I want to help people. So I was constantly flitting back and forth between, should I be thinking about what I know I have issues with and trying to work from there, or do I go with what I really want, what I want to do, and kind of dig deeper on that? So what came up with even more when I started thinking about it, and I'm like,
So what just came up for me is, what is the definition of success for you? What does that really look like? Because I think that is the part that really is the big question for you at the moment, is, what does success mean? If you're thinking success and feeling overwhelmed, is that really a definition that you want to continue to have with success? Because success can mean just being like happy that you woke up today. That was a success. Or happy I finished what I started. That was a success, And so none of those things have to be overwhelming. But if in your mind you're already thinking, oh my God, success means overwhelming, really start to question what that means to be successful. Because
so I really want to concentrate on, what does successful look like to me? If I were to sit in success right now, what would that look like? What would that be?
And what drives that in you? Okay. What drives the want to be successful? We all want success, correct? Do you want to be successful in your life? Do you want to feel like you're succeeding, right? Isn't that what we want to do, is feel that, right? And so it's important. Yeah, it's important. And so it's like one of those things where when you start to recognize what success means to you, you can really begin to go deep inside and say, oh, this is what pushes me to become more successful, or this is what makes me attain my goals and reach those places. So like when you start to have doubt happen, so like let's say you only go 4 levels
That's
deep.
a step back.
Right. It will pull you back. So let's say you went 4 levels deep and it really wasn't your core reason of what makes you successful. You can forget about it, push it aside, and then reach back for that failure and say, oh, I'm a failure. Oh, I didn't reach my success. Oh my God, this didn't happen, because that driving 4th level wasn't enough for you to push past that failure feeling. Does that make sense? We want that driving factor, that thing that pushes you ahead, the thing that makes you want to continue to move forward with whatever it is that you're doing. You know, it's the thing that drives you to get out of bed in the morning. It's the thing that drives you to, you know, be nice and have your standards of how you want to live your life. And so it's interesting when you start to really dissect that, what that looks like for you. What does it look like when something's driving you to continue to move forward? How does that feel? Because those sensations are going to help you on your road in the future. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So how about anybody else? Anybody else have any questions? Or you guys ready for today? Today's a good one. Today's a really good one. I'm really excited about today because it makes us go even further, because this next one is your creative identity. It's self-expression. And so when you start to really understand what self-expression means and communication in your throat chakra, this is where we receive and send information. And so there is a communication that is being expressed to yourself, from yourself, around yourself, that creates the story and sets you up for what's going to happen between you and other people, you and the world around you. And it really begins to, you know, build you up and either create tons of stories, or you can start to get back into your truth and really understand yourself better. And so when you are looking at it, what you're doing is you're seeing that communication is the movement of energy from the inner world of thoughts to the outside world of stimulating consciousness. So do you understand what that means? Like when we're communicating, it's taking this energy, this flow of energy that's flowing through our whole entire body. Imagine that we have these chakras that are lining up now, right? And what if one chakra is just a little bit more closed than the other? So information is being let go. Not everything that you want to say is getting clear, but you're still going to express yourself, because that is how we do this. That is how we communicate, is we express ourselves. But when we're expressing ourselves, there's a lot to it. It is the way we sound, so our tone. It's the words that we choose. It's our body language that we use. It's the clothes that we wear. This is talking about complete self-expression. And when you bring that expression out, what does that look like in return? What does that look like to the person that's next to you and around you, and and this is where relationships form, and this is how relationships start to see and perceive the world around you based on communication with yourself and others. And your chakras have a lot to do with it, because the first thing that somebody feels from you is your energy. It's the first thing that comes to mind. Whether you know it, whether you believe it, whatever, the energy is the first thing that comes towards you. And so we have to start to think about and break down our thoughts. We have to really start to think about, okay, if I'm expressing myself, and a lot of the expression that I'm going to use is based on the way I'm thinking. So if you're thinking positive thoughts, well, isn't that going to help you to have a positive, more creative, more beautiful self-expression, right? Mm-hmm. But if we have negative self-thoughts and you're going to have more of a negative point of view about yourself. You're not going to look at yourself the same way. You're not going to accept yourself the same way. It's going to feel really uncomfortable for you if you have negative thoughts. And so it's going to feel like it around you as well. I cannot begin to tell you how many times I've been into get-togethers where the most beautiful girl in the room has negative things to say about herself, to the point where she nitpicks herself about every little negative thing about herself, which looks perfect for me. And it's like, don't you know how pretty you are? Like, really, do you need to nitpick? And what is this about for you? You know, and it was like her insecurities coming out, showing it to herself, and causing people to, like, you know, that most beautiful person in the world can make you feel really uncomfortable inside because of the fact that they are not really expressing themselves authentically. Like, come on, you don't really know how pretty you look. Like, you're a size 4 and you have shapes and sizes all over the place. Like, give me a break, you know? But they'll still continue to make themselves feel bad for them. And, you know, oh, am I this and am I that? And it's like, stop nitpicking. But now we're forming an opinion about that conversation. And so it's really important to start to take a step back. This is a really important piece to intuition. Is when you take a step back and you can really see the whole story based on communication, based on speaking. So the thing about the throat chakra is it's about your right to be heard. It is your right to be heard. So let's kind of examine that a little bit when we really begin to start thinking about this, because this can be either really, really good for somebody, or it can be really, really hard from somebody based upon how they grew up. A lot of being heard comes from childhood and how they were treated as a child. So it's going to be, for some people, when we express ourselves, some form of shame can come out. Because we're being vulnerable by just even bringing ourselves out there, putting ourselves out there. It's a very vulnerable place to be. As soon as you start talking, as soon as you walk out the door, you are expressing yourself to the outside world. And if you're not confident and you're not strong about your conviction on who you are and what you are and how you say things, and you're not completely grounded in your vulnerability, which, I mean, this is a really hard place to be, you know, so I can understand it can be very difficult. So here's what happens. You get into a room with a bunch of colleagues, let's say, and you go and you start talking to everybody. And the first thing is you start comparing each other. You start talking to each other, and your self-worth starts to get connected to your productivity. You start blaming other reasons why you're not as good as that person over there. You start allowing perfectionism inside of you come up and come forward. It can be so exhausting going to be around people that it's like you want to choose not to, because of how difficult it might be to put yourself out there. And so it's really important to see, how do you put yourself out in the world? How do you really do that? And so it's really important to really break this down. So this stuff is really going into, I'm talking, we're going to get deep today. I mean, like I do every day, you know, we get deep and we get there and we're like, oh my God, we're going through this roller coaster ride again. But that's okay, because the deeper we go, the more we know ourselves, the more intuitive you become. You will become psychic just from your ability of knowing yourself so well. That is the big thing that I have realized growing up with my aunt, who was a medium. She always asked me, how does it make you feel? What is that like when you feel that? How do you feel? What is that like when you feel that? How is that when you feel that? Like, every single thing was about emotion. There was a part of growing up where emotional conversation was something that we talked about a lot. And so it allowed me to really know how I felt inside. It really allowed me to identify and put words to things that, you know, some people, it takes a really hard time to put words to those things. And so it was difficult because yes, I had to really identify my emotions, but at the same time, it was a blessing because now in my lifetime, I can ask those questions and see how people react. And believe me, I really thought everybody could identify, speak, and say exactly what they were feeling. I thought that was normal. And so when I recognized that it wasn't, it's like, oh, this is something that can be taught. We can be taught these things. We can be taught these new tricks and ideas and ways that we can kind of recognize what's going on. So it's really important when we're working with people and we're talking to people and we're among our colleagues that when vulnerability shows up, if somebody comes to you and starts talking to you, that they know that we're listening, that we're hearing them, that we really are right there with them and we're listening to what their concerns are. And so it's really important because when somebody becomes vulnerable, we have a reaction to that as well. It's not as easy as what you might expect. You know, you think that you might have all the answers when somebody starts throwing out their heart and really talking about what matters to them and what their feelings are and how their feelings are. But like a lot of people, when somebody starts to become vulnerable, they start worrying about saying the right thing or maybe doing the right thing, wanting to fix it. Maybe getting a little nervous because now somebody's really starting to share. And so it's like, it's really important to recognize, what are you like when somebody's being vulnerable with you? It's really about recognizing your reaction and your communication with somebody. So that is why I put together these forms today. So do you guys really understand what I'm talking about here? I'm talking about when we get into a room and we're trying to communicate and we're trying to be the most authentic person that we can be. How do we do that when we have so much that we grew up with that could stop us from really being the true authentic that we could possibly be? How do we express our true self when we're told to stop crying, or we're told to shut up, or we're told that not now, or you're a kid and you shouldn't be talked to, or you'd only talk when we ask you to talk, or, you know, there was a huge respect thing back in the day where it was like kids did not talk back. There was no such thing as talking back, you know? And so there was positive and negative to that. There's positive in the grown-up world because now we have kids falling in line. It was negative because these kids really didn't get a chance to learn how to express themselves. They never felt safe to really truly express how they really felt because there was always this negativity to opening up their mouth. And so worthiness becomes a huge part to your self-expression. So now it's like when you look at yourself and let's say you start to nitpick everything about the way you look. Maybe you're not fitting in your clothes the way you want to, or maybe something, your hair isn't exactly the way you want it to be, or maybe something isn't exactly the way you want it to be. Maybe those little nitpicking things that you're looking at have nothing to do with the outside person that you are. Maybe none of that has to do with what you really look like. Maybe what's really happening inside is you're struggling with your true, authentic self-expression. I know that's hitting hard now. I can feel it in all of you, and it's okay. It's okay that we're here right now in this space because it's incredible when you begin to recognize who you're defining yourself by is from a past person from so long ago that it doesn't need to be there anymore. That you can really begin to identify yourself and see where your triggers are so that you can start to fix these things. All right? So the first thing that I really want you to do is look at your the first page, the throat chakra, right to speak and be heard. What is your self-expression when faced with these emotions? So I want you to pick one of these words that is in this chart. And I want you to use this tool that I'm giving you right now for intuition. Because if the throat chakra is such a beautiful place to really start develop your intuition, because it's all about understanding. Because if you know your shit, if you know your emotions so well, when something comes up that doesn't feel like yours, boom, just say it, because I'm telling you, right on the money. You're right on the money because you know your stuff. But the only way to do that is if we go deep and realize what you do when you're trying to have self-expression. Now, this stuff is going to be really unique and really amazing when you start to get in there. So the first thing that I want you to do when you pick your emotion is start writing about what does it feel like to you when you have that emotion that you chose. When that feeling comes up. If you're being judged, what is it like for you? What is that feeling like? I get really angry when I feel like I'm being judged. And then I start judging everybody more. I get fiery about it. Like, I just start to want to get really riled up because, like, who are they to judge me? And then I start judging them and I'm like, whoa, okay, we're not going to do that. So it's like, it's really amazing when we start to break these things down and we can recognize that this is happening, so we can tone our thoughts down. Because when we tone our thoughts down, we can flip it back into positivity. We can recognize, oh, I'm in this, but this is the stuff I need to be in. I'm uncomfortable. I'm growing. I know this is right where I'm supposed to be, and I'm in it, and I'm standing there. And even though it's uncomfortable, I'm still able to admit this stuff to myself. The defensiveness, this defensive mechanism that we have inside about the things that we are trying to be critical about in ourselves can be pretty incredible. So it's okay to just allow yourself to embrace this. So the next thing is how do you feel when you see somebody else experiencing this emotion? Like I said, if I see somebody else judging me, I get really upset. I want to judge them. And then if somebody's judging someone else, like let's say they're not judging me, but they're judging someone else, I really step back and I'm like, ooh, I don't like the way that sounds. It's a lot easier for me to recognize it on somebody else than it is on myself. But when it's happening and I'm recognizing that somebody else is doing the judging, ooh, that's a trigger for me, because my gut starts churning. Once again, go back to that physical sensation. The more that you can start to connect your physical self with your thoughts and recognize how you react to that thought, you can change the way you physically react. But first you have to know what that's like. If you get a churning feeling, if I get a feeling of turning and anger whenever I hear somebody judging somebody, but also when somebody's judging myself and how I judge other people. So if judgment is an anger feeling for me, I know when I'm in anger because I feel it. And then I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm judging. Okay, no, I'm good. I got this. And so I step back and I get myself going. And so that's the thing that's where I want you to start connecting each one of these emotions to a sensation. Some of those feelings are going to feel the same. So excitement and fear are the same feeling. They can feel the same way. So is anxiety and excitement. That like, oh my God. Like if I'm going on a roller coaster, I'm excited, but I'm also nervous. I'm excited and then I'm nervous. I choose what I want to flip into. If I'm nervous, I'm going to think of all the negative things that are going to happen. If I'm excited, I just think about all the exciting things and how wonderful it's going to be. And oh my God, I'm with my friends, and it becomes more exciting for me. Learn how your emotions are running your life. These core emotions are so important to really begin to take these and meditate with them. And say to yourself, okay, today's meditation, I'm going to work on sad. So I'll sit there, and I don't want you to be like, ooh, I gotta cry, I wanna be sad. I want you to just know what that feeling is like inside of you. Think of a sad movie you watched and notice the feeling of what it's like to be sad. And then I also want you to know what it's like to get out of sad. Getting in and getting out. Moving through it with fluidity. We're going to be angry. We're going to go through these core emotions. You're not going to ever go to a time in your life where you'll never feel frustrated. There's going to come a time when frustration is going to come up. The difference is, how do you deal with frustration? How do you move forward for frustration? How do you move past it? How do you get there? The first step is knowing who you are. Knowing how to react and act when these emotions come up. So how are you feeling right now for me talking to you about all of this?
Yeah, I'm kind of excited because I'm kind of feeling this, and you're kind of hitting the key of what I was feeling. So
good.
I'm happy about that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I'm curious to go through them all.
Yes.
I got this today when I was at the height of being really frustrated in the situation. And it was perfect because it made me stop to realize if I was that frustrated, then the other person was probably 10 times more frustrated, because I know what was being done. So it made me really stop and take a few steps back. So it was really helpful.
Fantastic. And that is what it's about. Because the thing is, you gotta understand, like, the more that we get to know our chakras, the more what we're gonna do is become more intuitive. That information in the beginning, way beginning into our root, we talked about how these tiny little particles come together and they speak to one another, and those particles come into molecules, and those molecules turn into chemical, the chemical turns into a cell, and we go on. There's information between it all. My hands right here, there's tons of information between my two hands. You cannot see them because they have not developed the tools that I can go to Walmart to buy to put the glasses on. They have them at the quantum physics store, but I don't know that key to get into that store to be able to buy that to show you what I'm talking about. But it does exist, you know. And there's Kirlian Photography. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but they take pictures and you can see your aura in the photographer. So, like, back in the day when I lived in Florida, there was a place called Casadega. Casadega is a spiritual community in the heart of Florida, and they have all sorts of psychics and mediums and all sorts of cool healers and all sorts of stuff that I'd be interested in, of course. And this one guy had this whole equipment where he took my picture and went to this computer screen, and he was able to show me my aura. He was able to print out my aura based upon what I was feeling in that moment. I thought that was incredible. And so it's just, the more you guys can remind yourself of the beauty of life and what it is that is there that we cannot explain. There's so much that is there that is beneath what anybody has explained to us and anybody has taught to us, because if we have that real power inside, you would be unstoppable. Think about how amazing you are becoming just by looking and touching your dark side enough to love it. Love your dark side. We wouldn't be able to see the light if there wasn't that dark side showing us the way. Love that. Embrace that. If you know there's a certain emotion that comes up inside of you on a regular basis, please embrace it. Oh shit, shame just came up for me. Oh my God, look at shame pull up and just want to shake me up and down. Oh, no, shame. We're not going to go down that path, because I'm choosing a new neural pathway to get there. Through meditation, through mindfulness, for recognizing my trigger. And then being vulnerable enough to express it to people that, hey, I am going through stuff right now, guys. So if you don't like the way I'm speaking to you, I am sorry. This is just me at the moment. Step back. Here I come. So now that we've come here, this next part of my class today is probably one of the most incredible that I have worked with, especially for healers. This is going to be so good and so eye-opening. And I just want to send all my gratitude for Brené Brown, because she really was she put this into words for me to be able to express to you in a way that was just like, holy shit, this is what I've been looking for a long time. So here we go. Let's talk about this overused word, empathy. I am an empath. I hear that a lot. But here is what we need to do. Here is what we need to listen to. You can take this information, you can do whatever you want with it, but the more that we can become better at being empathetic, the better off that we can be in a conversation with somebody being vulnerable. Because think about it for just a moment. How many times do we overreact to certain people's reaction to our vulnerability? We make it more, or we are the one that gets upset because they didn't react the way that they were supposed to in my time of need. And so let's begin to dissect this from the person experiencing empathy and also the person giving the empathy. All right? So when somebody is being vulnerable, there is only maybe two things that you need to say when somebody is being vulnerable and sharing their words. Me too. Me too. And you're not alone. When you hear those, how did that make you feel just saying me too? How did that just make you feel inside when I was saying that? How did it make you feel when I said to you, me too? Me too. You're not alone. Didn't that make you just feel a certain way inside?
There was a comfort.
There's a comfort, right?
A sense of comfort. Yeah.
A sense of comfort. Okay? So when we start to sit there and we talk to somebody about their vulnerability, they're starting to become vulnerable, and we miss the boat from helping to hurting. When you want to help them, but instead you're saying things that actually make them feel exposed. So it becomes no longer about their vulnerability, and it becomes about what the expression is that comes out because it wasn't really the right thing to say. So let me go further. So let's go from sympathy versus empathy. Now, feeling sorry for someone is a very difficult place to be when you're vulnerable. I'm sorry, you poor thing. Feeling bad for somebody instead of feeling for someone. Empathy feels connection, saying I see you. But when you're not really drawing a clear line when you're becoming sympathetic. It kind of feels bad. So I'm going to give you examples as I go along into my own experience. So when I would share my story of my upbringing, people would feel sorry for me. My child response was shame. I would feel guilty about experience and sharing it with somebody because they would make me feel sorry. They would make me feel as like they're sorry for me. Like there was something wrong with me. It was the pity that really began my whole journey towards feeling unworthy. Because every single time that we would be in class or somebody would say something about parents, I always had to bring up the fact that I was an orphan. And let me tell you, adults really don't have an easy time talking to a child about missing parents who have died. And so in that extreme, that is where that feeling where they were just trying to be nice to me, they were just trying to help me, their sympathy made it actually worse for me. It actually made me start to build up these walls around me. And so the next form of empathy would be, or the pitfall in empathy is when you react with gasp and awe. Like, here's your story and feel shame for you. It makes you feel so that they can feel better. Like for example, I would tell my story and then people would cry. People would cry about my vulnerability story, and then I would feel guilty because I made them cry. Do you know what that's like for a child when they're telling a vulnerable story about what their life is like? This is normal for me. This is how I live my life. And now I'm making this person cry because I told them I have no parents. So now I'm feeling guilty for even expressing myself the way that I want to. So now as that person is trying to be there for me, they're really not. They're not really being there for me because they're being like, oh, that doesn't feel good, does it? How does, you're not alone. I see you. Wow, what a difference that feels. Can you feel the difference physically with the words that I'm expressing? These little things that we can work on are going to make us better. So then there's the mighty fall. So let's say, you're pouring your heart out to somebody and they respond with disappointment. You go from being sad to defensive because they couldn't imagine that you would do something so wrong. And so it's like then become driving for perfectionism. So let's just say I go to this other person and I said, listen, I can't believe this. Here I am just trying to tell the story about my parents, and this person started crying. I felt so guilty that I made that person cry. And instead of that person that I'm talking to giving me some kind of comfort, they say, yeah, you probably shouldn't have told him such a freaking sad story. Wow, what a difference that made. Thanks, man. Thanks for making me feel better. Thanks for that empathy. Thanks for making me feel that you're disappointed in me because I just wanted to say what was on my mind, because I wanted to speak my truth. Thanks, man. Now I can start to feel everybody is getting really sad right now because I'm talking these words. And that's okay. That is okay that we're here. I see you. You're not alone. Me too. Do you feel that? Do you feel how sad is okay and that I'm just standing? I love it when you say this, Deanna. I'm standing in the fire with you. Me too. Me too.
I have to give credit to Araya Mountain Dreamer for that one, though, in her invitation. The prose that she wrote in invitation, the one line that has always stuck out to me is, will you stand in the fire with me?
And I will tell you, you will always be the person that I remember when I think about it. Because you gave me that information, and I will always take it with me because I think it's incredible. And I'm so grateful for that woman to give that to you so that you could teach it to me, because it really does resonate for me. And you've got to understand something here. This is really, really important. So vibration, right? Our voice has vibration, right? So when it comes to resonating, we're going to pick it up here. This is where we hear and feel resonation. This is where it comes from. So when things are resonating, we're feeling it. And then it goes all over and comes down and goes up and really, but we're picking it up here from ears to throat. This is where we're feeling the resonating. All right. So now let's talk about the next thing. So let's talk about, you're trying to help somebody out, right? And they come to you, they're pouring their heart out to you. They're telling you whatever, and then instead of listening and validating their vulnerability, you want to blame somebody else, or you want to call that somebody names for hurting you. Instead of listening to what the problem is, you want to blame somebody. Because I'm telling you, it is very difficult for some people to be empathetic for others. To really listen is a process. Because we have to take ourselves out of the equation when we're being empathetic. We can't just put ourselves in there. So let's say that now my next person I'm talking to about my vulnerability. I have become guilty. I am shameful. I'm upset. I'm feeling like I'm disappointed. I'm trying to be that perfectionist. And so I go to this person and I'm like, listen, this guy's disappointed at me because I shared a story with somebody and made somebody cry. And this person's upset because I shared the story. And it was just about me and my story and my vulnerability. Why should I be upset that, that I made somebody cry? Why is this so upsetting? And instead of the person listening and saying, I hear you, this person instead said, that guy's just a jerk. That guy doesn't know anything. That guy's not going to help you. And so it no longer is about my feelings again. It's about that person being a jerk. That's not making me feel any better. That is just making somebody else get away from me pouring my heart out to them. So it's like, it's really getting to understand when we're having communication with somebody, whether it's our parents, whether it's our children, whether it's teachers, whether it's our boss, whether it's whoever that we're talking to, it is important to really understand, what is it that you are saying? What are you doing? Are you willing to be vulnerable with people? Are you willing to take yourself out of the equation and let them cry? Let them speak. Let them get angry. Let them do their thing so that they can just process. They're just looking for someone so they're not alone. So think about this. I'm going to bring it back to your little child self. Think about the little child that never got anybody to really let them be vulnerable. Because crying is not okay for children to do. You're supposed to be seen, not heard. So think about that. What does that do to that child? The child never gets to feel safe about opening up. You know? And so that is what's so incredibly important. When you say you are an empath and you're feeling somebody's emotions, well, now take it a step further. Become neutral. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to change the subject or make it feel less for them. They're opening up for you because they're trying to help them feel something, and they're trying to really be vulnerable and speak their truth because they know that once they do, they're going to have their true, authentic expression come out. So it's really, really important to listen to that and to recognize, do you do that? Do you do any of these things I talked about? Do you sometimes, when you're talking to somebody, do you do this without even recognizing it, without realizing it? You know, and so the next one is when somebody is telling you it's not really that bad. They're not really listening. Like that's a lot of times what moms would do. Like this child is telling the story and being really emotional about it. And this mom is just trying to do the grocery shopping, driving, or doing whatever, cooking dinner, or doing whatever needs to get done. Where she just needs that time. And instead of listening to the little child, she's saying, it's not that big of a deal. Just deal with it. Think about where that child's vulnerability goes. Oh, I'm not going to tell you anything anymore. You're just going to push it aside and it's not really worth it. Like, how many times am I going to feel more hurt? And so guess what happens? Now, this little child is blaming mom for her vulnerable and sad situation instead of what's really going on. Because the person that she was trying to be vulnerable with wasn't willing to be there and stand there with them and feel it with them. So it was like all the symbols and signs got crossed and miscommunication happened. So now what your adult brain is thinking happened as a child really didn't happen that way. Really didn't happen exactly the way you think it did. The stories got crossed because when you were being vulnerable, you weren't being heard. So now it's that person that wasn't listening's fault. Think about this self-expression and how it really makes a huge difference when we're trying to really be authentic. It's pretty incredible. So now all that resentment, all that anger, all that frustration that you might have had with somebody that you grew up with, it's time to start maybe letting off a little bit, forgiving a little bit more, because when we really think about it, like, do you remember what it was like at 4 years old when you're emotional trying to tell a story? How fast are you going a mile a minute trying to tell about how the story happened? You know, and it could have been something so simple as like, you know, my brother cut my Barbie's hair and then it was just all over the place and the hair is gone and all this stuff is happening. And then the mom is just looking at the child being like, it's not that big of a deal. Just cut it out. Go lay down. I got to go do what I got to do. Do you see the expression right there? This child was only worrying about the Barbie, which, yeah, it wasn't a big deal. But it was for that child. But now, The child is getting angry at mom instead of the situation. We changed what we were angry with. We changed the whole process because there's so much going on in communication besides just speaking and thinking that you're just getting it out 100%. And so the last place that we can be in empathy, this is a big one. And this is something that I actually, over the years, are starting to be more empathetic about. And that is, if you think that's bad, well, listen to my story. So you start comparing and competing. So you shift the focus of the vulnerable person that's right there and bring your attention to yourself and your vulnerability. So you're trying to help that person feel not so bad, thinking, you know what, well, you're, mine is way worse, but then I'm not validating what the person's saying. I'm just trying to help them because I'm uncomfortable with what they're saying, because I don't know how to help them. And as a nurturing person, I just want to make it all better, but I can't. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you my story. Listen to my story. If you listen to mine, you're going to feel better because at least you're not going through what I went through. Wow. Was I insensitive? Wow. Without realizing it. I was trying to be there for somebody, thinking I was doing the right thing, but instead, I stopped listening and I started putting myself in there. And that is an incredible journey when we start to step back and recognize how we interact with the world. What an incredible being that you are going to be when you start recognizing how people treat you with the lack of empathy and how you treat others with lack of empathy. We are all responsible for doing one of these things. We have all done these things. We have all been here where we think we're helping and we're not. And this is so incredibly important so that we can recognize that when we're being pissed at somebody and when somebody's being pissed with us. So instead, when that trigger comes on and you're in that relationship with somebody and you're speaking with more than just words and body language and everything, that we become a little softer. Take ourselves back from the equation a minute and recognize the other person. Recognize where they are. And if they're not being empathetic with you, wow, we got to recognize that that's not fair for us to expect them to know. How do they know? They're not taking my class. They're not reading Brené Brown. They're not thinking mindfulness. They're thinking get up, go to work, come to home, go to bed, get up, go to work, come home, go to bed. They're not thinking of that. In these work situations where people are working and they're stressed and they're under a lot of pressure and they're trying to do the right thing. How often does empathy just get thrown out the window because they just want to get stuff done? Wow, how are we going to be productive doing that? That doesn't work for people. People don't want to work harder for somebody that's not empathetic with them. It's the complete opposite. I'm sure everybody can relate to that one now, can't you? And when you don't have that empathy that you really feel you deserve, that's when we have to step away from those people that no longer are giving us those warm fuzzies. That's when we start to recognize that. And we also have to recognize this in ourselves. The people we want to help the most, the ones that we're judging without judging, like our children that make decisions that we're just like, I would not have made that choice. But you still have to kind of deal with the choices that they're making, but we can do it a little softer. We can do it with more of listening and not necessarily with trying to make it better. Because that's a hard thing as mothers. Don't we want to just make it better for our children? Isn't our first instinct is to make it better? And that's hard. So that we probably do this to our children just as much as our parents have done it to us without even realizing it. And wow, When we start to realize it, I bet you're going to have a whole different conversation the next time you're around people in general, just people, but here it is. When you start to really tap into your self-expression, how you feel when you're speaking, how you feel when you're entering a room, how you feel when you're influencing others, when you're in that space and you're feeling confident and you're feeling alive inside because you really know that you deserve to be heard. That's what it comes down to. When you're vulnerable enough to admit to yourself that you are speaking with conviction. This is my truth. Hear me roar. And that was a big thing, like growing up, like I'm just weird. I will talk about astrology, tarot cards, spirit guides, and, chakras with you. I've been doing it my whole entire life. And I've always had to be vulnerable about that because I grew up in a funeral home as an orphan. So like some weird things happened to me in my life that forced me to be vulnerable, that forced me to find confidence. And the more that I do, the more my outside appearance shapes up. I feel better about myself. Nothing's really changed except for me and my vision about how I see myself. It can be instantaneous or it can be a long road, and it's up to you. So the next thing I want you to do in the last page here is I want you to think about this. When you think about these different traps, is there one or two that shut you down? Is there one or two traps that shut you down?
Are you referencing the things the different types
of empathy? Yes. Yep.
Okay, because I didn't write them down.
That's okay. I mean, I can even send you this page. I just didn't want to send it to you ahead of time because I wanted to go over it so it wasn't cheating, But
Can you send it now?
Can I send it now?
I just want to have it to reference.
Yeah. Let me see. I don't know if I
didn't write them all down.
That's okay. I will send it to you, but it's sympathy versus empathy. It's the gasp and awe. It's the mighty fall. This is where you're feeling like you're disappointing somebody by, saying something you shouldn't have. The block and tackle. That's when you want to blame it on somebody else. We'll just stop you from talking and we'll blame it on them. And so it'll be about them instead of what's really going on. It's the boots and shovel. This is when you're saying, oh, it's really not that bad. And then
What was that?
The boots and shovel. These are all Brené Brown's words, and so she has all this online in her Dare to Lead book. I suggest everybody read that book who's in a leadership role. She actually has all of this in a workbook form, so you can be going along with the chapters and writing things down. It's a really great way to use it for yourself, because I think I have a communications degree. That's what I went to school for, is communications, because I thought it was super incredible to just express self-expression and way that the way that you dress and the way that you use the words and tone. And I could go on about this topic forever, and it's really about this new part of it that Brené Brown showed me was how emotions really set it off and how it really sets up with the chakras. This work that I'm doing is so connected to, the chakras are so connected to the emotional stuff, because we want the chakra to be flowing. We want you to be so flowing with so much ease that you just speak your truth and people just gravitate to you. People are hearing you and you're being authentic and real, and they just want more. That's what you're doing as a leader, is you're providing that for others. And the last one was about, if you think that it's bad, listen to this one. So it's comparing and competing your story. So that was the last one. So there should be 6 there. If you did it, if you kind of, and I will still send these notes to you because it's pretty cool. And but it's just, I want you to really begin to get to know these pitfalls that happen with empathy, because you'll be surprised at what comes up for you. Because if somebody isn't being empathetic with you, and you really need that because you're being vulnerable, your relationship with that person changes. Your relationship changes because the communication isn't really there. It is amazing to me how many times Jason and I will talk and we'll say the same thing but in different words, and we argue about it. And we're saying the same exact thing. And so it's okay. Now we just laugh at each other. We used to fight like cats and dogs. And we'd be screaming at each other because we're both very hard-headed people that we just want to get our point across. And I'll be explaining something one way and he'll be explaining something the other way. And it's the same exact message. So take that into consideration when you're really doing all of this, and recognize that, it's really easy for us to think we're saying exactly how we're trying to get a point across, but we're really not, because the defensiveness comes right up. Because we're so afraid, even before we even get to the vulnerable part, we start assuming that the person's not going to be empathetic with us. Think about that. You get to the part where you want to get really juicy into your feelings, but you hold back so much because you don't know if you can trust that person with your feelings, because you don't know if that person can be really empathetic with you the way that you really need at this moment. This is some really incredible things to recognize about the people in your life. Because what if you didn't get angry with them for not being that way? What if we accepted them for their own ways? What if we accepted them for being the way they are, but we become more empathetic when they need us, so that they know what it feels like to be more empathetic? Because maybe we never were that way with them either. Maybe we thought we were because we're women, we think we know how to express ourselves so well. But maybe we get defensive and angry and reactive before guys have a chance to even know what we're thinking. Because we have a tendency, not just guys, but in general, people, we have a tendency to already assume we know what the outcome is going to be from a conversation. We go into situations with a thought on how the conversation is going to go. We fantasize, we put out there what we think is going to happen, and so you start practicing the words that you're going to use during the conversation. But what if that's not where it needs to go? You know? What if it's not where the conversation needs to go? And that is what's super important to think about. Is we need to be mindful of how we react when we're trying to be vulnerable and when we are being vulnerable. When we're listening to vulnerability and when you're giving it. How are you when you're being empathetic? Are you as forgiving as you wish others were with you?
I like to think most of the time I am. There are times, and I catch myself, and some of these things I've done, and I've caught myself either at the time or later going, oh boy, that wasn't the right thing to do or to say. I usually just sit back and listen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and also when you are in a job where listening is nice, it becomes something that you get to be really good at, and that is as in the service industry that we're in, listening is so important, especially when people are being vulnerable on the massage table. So it's like that's where their vulnerability is, and so
Yep.
It's so important to listen. But there are times when we become controlling over situations. Like, let's say that you're a really good listener, but how are you at giving your feelings up unconditionally without the worry of how somebody's going to respond to you?
Oh, yeah, I'm still working on that one.
Right?
Big time, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
We want to be very successful in the giving aspect. We want to give. We're the nurturers. But when it comes the other way, ooh, that doesn't feel good. Or, ooh, I'm defensive. Or, ooh, you said that wrong. Or, ooh, man. And so it becomes a little bit more difficult. Don't you think? Mm-hmm. So go into where you are in the way you express yourself. Go to yourself. Go inside of yourself and start to embrace it. Embrace yourself. Embrace where you are right now. Embrace who you are right now. Love yourself unconditionally. Recognize that right now we're touching really dark pieces of ourselves. So when we can start to recognize who we're going to be vulnerable with and who we won't be vulnerable with. When we're expressing ourselves, we will be able to do it in a way that's comfortable when we know that you don't have to say it to everyone. We don't have to express it to everyone, every time, everything. We do it to the people that we can feel safe with so that we can develop ourselves in this feeling. So that the more we speak our truth, believe me, it is before I get on these conversations and I teach these things, I get nervous. I get really, really nervous because I'm really excited first. I'm so excited about these classes, and I want you guys to receive them. I want you to feel them. I want you to be part of this. And I'm so excited about this journey. And then I get nervous because then I start judging myself and I start to think like, oh my God, I'm about to get really vulnerable with these people. And luckily, I trust all of you very much for this. It's like, I don't know if I could do it if I didn't, I would probably be a totally different teacher if I didn't feel comfortable being vulnerable with you and telling you how I feel and giving you guys these experiences that I'm feeling, and I'm going through it with you. And so it's just this process. And the more that we go through the process, the better we become. We become better at being intuitive. We become better at listening. We become better at expressing ourselves to the people that we need to. If there are people in your life that disappoint you every single time you share your vulnerability, there has got to be some other way of communicating with them. Because maybe they didn't even realize they were doing it. Now, if they can't handle your vulnerability, that is the first question. Can you handle where I'm going right now? Is it okay if I go here with you right now? If they say no, okay. That's a little bit better than being like, don't worry about that. It's nothing. Right? At least they're being...
shutting you down.
Right. They're just letting you know that this is some really thick stuff and I don't know if I can really help you with this. That's a lot better communication. There's a lot less reading between the lines. Think of how much we read between the lines because we're not communicating clearly. We're not saying what we really want to say. So think about this now from a law of attraction point of view. What is the universe listening to from you? What does the universe hear you say? How are you expressing yourself? If you are thinking abundance, but then feeling insecure with having abundance, that's a really confusing message for the universe. It's a really confusing message when you're trying to express yourself in a certain way, but you're doing things to sabotage that. If I'm like telling Jason, I really want to lose 10 pounds today because, or this week or in this month because, I'm just really feeling like I want to really get toned and tight for summer, But then I go and eat those cookies and go back to those cookies like, man, I'm not really being authentic now, am I? And that it can be so simple. So now, is Jason believing me? Is he really listening to me? Am I really speaking my truth? That's so important. It's so important in so many different ways. It's not just Jason hearing me. It's the universe The universe is watching. So, okay, law of attraction, you want 10 pounds, but you're still eating cookies. That's confusing. You know that's not how it works, Desiree. Really? Why not? But you know what I'm saying? Do you understand that that's what's so important? It's about how you're expressing yourself. Your spirit having a human experience. When you really think about it, our whole existence is about self-expression. You're the only one of you. You get to do this your way, no matter what. If you want to hide in the corner your whole life, go for it. But I know in Dirty Dancing, they say nobody puts baby in the corner. That was my favorite line in that movie.
Mine too.
Love that movie. But you got to understand is that, like, what are you doing? Who are you blaming? Who are you not accepting? That's when you really start to recognize that you're in it. Any questions? Did you know this was a thing?
I will say, I can't even tell you how many aha moments I just had of clarity in thinking I was doing all this one thing, and I was doing the exact opposite of what I wasn't quite mixed. I wasn't quite in sync. So
yeah,
it's definitely maybe.
Yeah. So you're.
Question for you, because I'm familiar with a couple of it. I'm not with all of them and all of this, but so as I realize that some of the things that you can say, you think you're helping and you're not. It's actually not helping. So of course I automatically go back to realizing some of the things that I've said to Haley,
Mm-hmm.
and thinking about her and how I was saying things like that. So, and then all of a sudden I'm realizing, oh, and now I feel guilty.
Right. Right.
Because I know what I said and what I used to say, really, I shouldn't have been saying. And oh my God, now I feel bad. So now I'm trying to deal with the guilt. So I'm looking for a suggestion.
Right. Well, that was why I wanted to tell you. It's okay. It is okay that you did what you did. You were doing just what you knew. You are not the same person right now that you were yesterday.
I was.
Or last week or last month. And now with this information, you're going to go into this world with way more that you can, like, tools to help yourself. To really listen to the way people talk. I bet you the next time you have a conversation with somebody, you're going to be more into listening to how they respond and how they're receiving than you were about, like, the whole conversation in general. Because it's more awareness. It's just more awareness. It's not your fault you did what you did. You were just trying to do the best you could. But now, take that same information and apply it to your mom.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? I know it's hard. It's really hard when we have to really start recognizing that, man, maybe she didn't have all that she needed. Maybe she wasn't aware of all this stuff, you know? And if she wasn't, that is okay too. Acceptance. Just like I have to accept I'm an orphan. I can't change that. You can't change the way you grew up. But accepting it and moving on, being like, wow, I'm strong because of that. Wow, I don't think I would want to change a thing in my life. No matter how hard it was, it always made me better. Everything that's been hard in my life has pushed me to make me better. So of course I'm going to keep getting better and better. So if I did those things, I can tell you I did. I've probably done it with all of you. I probably, without even realizing it, I've said things just trying to help because I feel I want to be there for you. And then I step back and be like, shit, I was supposed to be neutral right there. Okay, time out a minute. Neutral. You know, but it's like, it's natural for us to want to help somebody in need. And when they're crying and they're talking to you, we always want to help. And we're not therapists, so we don't really know any of this stuff. We're not studying this stuff. But like, wow, maybe just hearing me too. You're not alone. Doesn't that feel good to you when I say that to you? Oh, I'm not alone. And so just feeling that and recognizing that piece of the self is so incredibly important. Because when somebody is crying their eyes out to you and they just want to hear what you're saying, you say, me too. I hear you. I see you. I see you right now. Wow. That hits right here and I feel comfort. That's it. I don't need to know the answers. I don't need to fix my problem. I don't need to know anything except for you're here for me. You're here with me. You see me. Wow. Feels good, doesn't it?
It's big aha moments.
Yeah.
I was like, I knew what I was doing, but now I'm like, maybe I said that a little bit wrong. My girls always say I'm not empathetic. I'm like, I am too. But there is something. So I just had this just a couple days ago where I was telling you I was feeling good with this. But now I'm feeling even better because I know what I was doing.
Yeah. It's so incredible because the thing is the more that you recognize it, I'm telling you, your conversations with people are going to be different. Your reaction to people's conversations are going to be different. And it's the practice. Now, you're going to probably feel like am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. Just start recognizing the triggers. Recognizing where you are right now. Recognize what's going on in your life. Where is it sending you? Where are you feeling it? And let it happen. It's okay. Because it's a process. It's not an overnight success. You've got this. You absolutely.
Well, I think that's my other aha was just embracing where you are. Embracing.
Yeah, exactly.
How you are, what you are.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's a biggie.
It's huge. It's huge.
I love the ahas.
Me too.
My new website is up.
I know, right?
Website?
Yeah, aha tales.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and check out Deanna's aha tales.
Aha tales.
Yeah.
I can give you tons of ahas because I've been having a lot of them lately.
Me too.
Oh, it's great though. Like it really, all this time I'm thinking I'm being all this sympathetically person, and all I'm doing is yeah, well, because as you were saying that, what made me think about it is all those ways of responding are about you. It's not about the other person, and yet all along you're thinking it's about the other. You're trying to make it about the other person, and I agree with you, Melissa. It's when people say you're not being empathetic, you're like, but I thought I was.
Right. And it's what's incredible is it's like the most kind, gentle-hearted people that, because you're trying to be empathetic, you think you're doing the right thing, but we cross boundaries. We cross the line with people without even realizing we're doing it. Here they are just crying their eyes out to you, trying to tell you how they feel, and we're just dismissing it.
Yeah.
Great stuff, guys. Great stuff.
Great teacher tonight.
Oh my God. I was really super excited about this class tonight. I mean, obviously, communication's my thing, I was never really good about being in front of the camera, though. I was always the one doing the recording or all that stuff, writing things. But, we're in a new world and we got to just keep moving forward, right? And
you're doing a really good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I am personally so grateful for doing this.
Me too, because I really feel so much joy and love from, chakras has been my thing for a very long time. 20 years ago, Jason and I started our first fitness business, and our LLC was Chakras LLC. I've been working with chakras for a very, very long time, and the more that I recognized where the energies are right now, it's like, you guys got this. You're going to see so many wonderful things come into your life just by changing our thoughts, just by changing the way that we're feeling. And you're going to see a huge difference in the way that you're moving with ease. That's it. When hard things come, we just go with it. We just float over the surface and let it flow.
I think that's the exciting part.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I get to watch you guys do it, which is awesome. Do you guys have...
I wish you did get to eyeball us, right?
Well, I can see your energy, so...
I know, but there's nothing like standing in the energy.
Yes, that's true. That's true, for sure. So, do you guys have any questions? Anything that you need help with? Anything that you're feeling? No?
I just have a lot of gratitude right now.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Definitely.
Awesome, guys. Well, you guys have a wonderful evening. I will see you next week, and we will continue to move on. All right? You guys have a great night. You're welcome.
Bye.
I'll see you later. Good night.
Desi, do you want me to stay on so you can get my payment?
Do you want to just go online to where you usually do and just go onto the link, or do you want me to send you the link?
Well, because I got on that link, but it says it's too late.
Oh, okay. I will send you a new link then.
Okay.
I'll send it to your email. Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.